Hey, it's Roy Newgate, and we're back reviewing another One Piece chapter. And I think this is the last chapter of the year as well, so it's probably going to be a while before we get to do another one of these. You know, with all the breaks coming up, the Shonen Jump breaks, and the end, the regular end of the year breaks and everything. But before we even get to the review, if this is your first time here, or you just normally enjoy One Piece content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell to stay posted on all of my uploads. With all that aside, let's get right into the review. Now, the chapter title is Zoro versus King. So, last chapter was Sanji versus Queen, and that fight concluded, or rather, what seemed to us to be a conclusion at the end of that chapter. So, now with this being titled Zoro versus King, I guess one could surmise that this is the end of this fight as well. I mean, we already the chapter already, so we know this is actually the end. But I want to talk about the cover page for a minute because it looks like we're starting a new cover story. And honestly, this is so refreshing because we've had cover requests for the longest after the Beige family cover story ended, and that cover story was so brutal. I mean, I think it lasted almost 40 chapters, and factoring how One Piece has its breaks and everything, that's like over a year of chapters. And I guess when you throw in the pandemic and everything, that could be like a year and a half or something like that. But yeah, there was just nothing to get excited for when it came to this cover story for me personally. I mean, I don't know how everybody else feels, but I'm just glad that's over with, and now we could start something focused on Whole Cake Island. And it looks like it's detailing how Germa escaped Whole Cake Island after everything they had going on there. But I guess it's kind of confusing because this should already be in the current timeline. It should already be 2 weeks after Luffy defeated Katakuri and Germa's involvement and all of that. So I'm wondering, is this a flashback, or is this like, did they actually stay there the whole 2 weeks? Because that would be kind of wild for them to just stay stationed there and everything. But I guess we'll see next cover story, or the next part of this cover story, how that whole thing unfolded. And if actually it's the case that 2 weeks have passed by and everything, then we may even see Katakuri and Cracker all healed up and everything, and may even see more of the other Charlotte family members that didn't get much exposition during the arc. I guess the one person we can't really look forward to is like Smoothie, because she's in Wano right now. And I'm not really sure what Oda's planning with her. He did say in the SBS that she's, incredibly powerful and everything. And I think he implied that he would show her full abilities at some point in the story. So who knows? That could be sometime soon or before the end of the arc. Now, moving on to the actual chapter, we see that Sanji's following through from his last attack, and it's so powerful and so heavy that Queen is sent flying out of Onigashima. And this is an insane feat because Queen isn't, he's an ordinary man. This is like a 10,000, 20,000 pound man literally getting sent into orbit. So I guess this just goes to show how much power is behind Sanji's most powerful kicks now. And we also see that he found the geisha's mouse and he handed it back to her because I guess given that when he was young, a little kid, his best friend was a mouse that he fed and everything, and he was ridiculed for that. So for him, it must have been a really touching moment. And as he goes to check on the geisha, make sure she's actually fine and everything, he collapses. And I think this was pretty inevitable because while he was fighting Queen and he was moving so fast that he appeared invisible, Queen said that sort of movement would just burn through his stamina. So I think this is the after effects now of him moving that fast during the fight. And he also said they were going all out for a while, so that could add to it and everything. And it's just like all that fatigue is hitting him at once. And now that his job is done, he can finally rest and get the first aid that he needs because I guess he has some substantial injuries as well. And I know there were some theories that the Calamities were going to use Awakening and get back up, and another one where Sanji would be fighting against CP0, I think it was, or something like that. But I guess this kind of puts an end to that, especially because now Sanji's declared the victor of this battle, and it's like, this is it. This is a conclusive victory over Queen that we were waiting on. I'm really curious to see where Queen lands, though, because he was sent way out of there, and I don't know what part of Wano he could possibly land in right now and what could come of that. But we'll see how that plays out. And moving on to the actual, the focal point of the fight, which is Zoro versus King. We see Zoro starting to use his Conqueror's coded attacks now. We see this huge streak in the first panel of the fight. And it looks like he blitzed him. He used one of his speed-based attacks and went for the mask again. Or, I guess, incidentally, he happened to break his mask. But yeah, that's when it starts to really come apart and we start to see a better glimpse of King's face. And at this point, I guess King is just like, all right, there's no point anymore. He just takes it off and just reveals his entire face. And And I'm not gonna lie, I mean, I'm pretty shocked to see, that Oda went this hard on his design, because I thought his like design with his like mask and suit on and everything was pretty dope. I thought it was one of the best on the island and possibly in the series, but he somehow still made him look that much better. And you could see his flowing white hair and everything. And then I guess there's a tattoo on his left eye that wasn't really clear. Like, but yeah, now it's obvious it's a tattoo. And I feel like I've seen this tattoo somewhere in another manga, so there might be some sort of significant symbolism behind it. But I guess we could touch on that on another video. Maybe if I do a kink video or something. But then we learn that, the world government is really adamant on having this entire race eradicated, to the point that they will give 100 million berries to anybody who has any information on them. Like, not even turning the individual in, but just giving a tip or something on the Lunarians or any surviving member of the race. So this really raises an intrigue on why the world government wants them eradicated so bad, because it's pretty hard to pinpoint right now. Like, what could have threatened the government so bad that they want this entire race just erased from existence? And then we have like a moment kind of like in Whole Cake Island when the Big Mom pirates, or I guess the chefs and everything, were able to see Katakuri's face, and then he just killed them all in one fell swoop. And King does the same thing pretty much, where he just kills everybody in the area, all the fodder that were able to see his face. And he uses a fire dragon attack that just envelops them and just, burns them all alive. And that's when Zoro gets King's attention and like lets him know that, he's still here and he has to focus on him. He also points out that he overheard the thing about how the government is really interested in his race. And then King, when Zoro asks him to tell him more about it, he's like, oh, you'll be dead soon anyway. What does it matter to you? So then he attacks him directly, and then the battle ensues again. And that's when eventually we get thrown into this flashback of Kaido and King back when they were what appears to be Punk Hazard. And Kaido broke out from his chains and everything. So this could be one of the times where he was captured and escaped. And it's also the very start of his pirate crew. And I think King may have been the first member, or one of the very first members that he recruited. And it kind of mirrors the whole thing with how Zoro was recruited by Luffy, and Roger recruited Rayleigh. So I think that was a pretty dope, nice little parallel and everything. On the one hand, you have him telling him he's going to change the world, like how Roger told Rayleigh. And on the other hand, you have him freeing him the same way that Zoro was freed by Luffy when he recruited him. So, everything just all aligns for this, flashback right now. And what I found really interesting was the fact that his name is not actually King. It was Arbor. And I guess I kind of assumed that the Calamities all had like their names off rip. King, Queen, Jack. And in this moment, Kaido tells King that he's too strong to be named Arbor. His name should be King. So I guess it says a lot about King's power and everything, and how highly Kaido thought of him. And it's at this moment that he tells him he's going to be his right-hand man from this moment forward. And this was like 30, maybe 35 years ago. So I guess it's been a really long time that Kaido and King have been together. So it's, there's a special bond between them, as it appears, stemming from this meeting of theirs. And then back to the present, we see what Zoro discovered earlier. He's being mentioned again, that the fact that whenever King's fire is burning, he's pretty much indestructible. But when it's not, he's moving at insanely fast speeds. So there's that check and balance that exists with his ability and everything. So then we see King use the same attack he used earlier, Imperial Dragon Flame. And Zoro manages to dodge it, but he points out that the flames are as hot as magma. So I guess it just goes to show just how hot the Lunarians can emit their fire. Because on the surface, it appears to mimic the ability of Akainu's Devil Fruit. So that's a really broken ability, just taking it for what it is. And then King attempts to attack Zoro directly. And again, like how we saw in chapter, I think it was 1023. He was able to disarm Zoro, or rather take his swords away momentarily after using his sword's special ability. And that happened once already to Zoro. So after seeing this again, it's not going to happen again. So he just held on to his swords. And what we have after that is what some people perceive to be a Conqueror's Clash. But I don't think that's what it was, because I think it would have been more obvious. I think this is just Zoro using his Conqueror's coding as a, on defense, and using that to ward away King and just, repel him and everything to free his swords, or make it easier to free his swords. And then what we have after that is King using the full brunt of his speed. And it looks like he's moving so fast that he doesn't appear visible, similar to what Sanji did in the previous chapter. And just like Sanji, there's a drawback that exists, and Zoro takes full advantage of this because that drawback allows him to land effective attacks on King. And I thought it was really dope because Zoro was able to effectively react to this attack, even, given its insane speed. And I know like the whole thing with Zoro sometimes is that people think that he's slow or he would have a problem with fast fighters and everything. But I think this kind of dispels that whole notion. Because of course his only problem before was that his attacks weren't working. But now, he has the kit now. He has the tools to actually harm him and the knowledge, of course. So the scales are very swiftly tipping in Zoro's favor. He lands an attack on King after reacting to his attack, and he uses Bird Dance. What I thought was dope about this was the fact that he uses Sandai for this attack, which is great because it shows that he's able to project his Conqueror's Haki on all of his blades and not just Enma. And the attack he used was Bird Dance, and I remember the last time we saw this attack was in Fishman Island when he was attacking Hody, and then Hody used one of his men as a shield. So it was cool to see this attack, and that's really dope to see him use, all these old attacks that I guess you probably would have figured that we would never see again. Like I remember on a rooftop he was using Crossing the Six Paths, and I personally did not think that there would be any, utility for that, but the way he used it against Prometheus, it was just so dope. So yeah, it's a really nice sight to see. And that's when King points out that he realizes that Zoro has figured them all out. He knows how his power works because Zoro's obviously taking advantage now and attacking at the right moments. Zoro even starts talking a little heavy, pointing out how King is starting to dodge his attacks and everything because, obviously Zoro's attacks in particular are now a lot stronger. So as Zoro sees it, King must be scared now. He takes offense to that. So he starts saying that Zoro's kind, can never hope to defeat him. And I guess this is the god complex that comes with being a Lunarian and, being a part of this race that's hailed as gods, King thinks he's undefeatable at this point. That sort of talk just pisses Zoro off. So they both prepare for a final attack, and King uses a bigger version of the fire dragon that he uses earlier. And some people saw this as a sort of homage to Kaido with the way he's been using this attack. And I can kind of say that because, you could tell how much Kaido means to him. And then on the other side, we see Zoro preparing a whole new attack. And with this attack, we see the Conqueror's coding trails are just streaking so far. They're so massive. So you could tell Zoro really put a lot of power into this attack. And all I could think about seeing this is if Zoro can do this and have Conqueror's attacks this powerful, and this massive, what will his end of series potential be like? And even what is Mihawk like right now? Because this is just absolutely insane. So with this attack, we see that he follows through, splits the dragon, and then heads straight for King and attacks him directly. And what's even crazier is the fact that he cut off his wing and broke his sword. Now, the wing part is pretty crazy because, this is like, a limb of his, as a Lunarian, losing your wing. I guess I would expect it to be some sort of mark of shame or something. So the fact that Zoro removed his wing entirely in this attack is just mind-boggling. But the part that kind of perplexes me the most, that I didn't expect at all, is the fact that he broke his sword. I always thought that being on this level, being a first commander, that your weapon wouldn't break even against a Yonko. But Zoro did this. I guess it just shows to show just how powerful he's become to be able to perform a feat like this. And I say there's also some speculation that he might have cut his arm off too. And that's kind of hard to tell with the panel. But I don't think that's likely at the moment. But I guess we'll have to see with officials and maybe even later down the road with the anime and everything. Or actually, no, we'll have a conclusive answer the next time King is on panel. It's simple as that. But with that, we've reached the end of this review, and this was an amazing chapter. The choreography was insane. If I had to give it a rating, I'd give it 100 out of 10. That's just how crazy it went. And you can make the case that this is Zoro's best fight ever, all things considered. Especially because, like, when you incorporate the flashback, how bad Zoro was getting whooped in the beginning, the realization that with all this second guessing, he's holding himself back and, preventing himself from ascending to this new level of power. But give me your thoughts on the chapter. What do you think of the fight? What do you think of Lunarians and why the world government wants them so bad? Comment all your thoughts down below, and also don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel as well.